All right, welcome to book club. I'm so glad Jessica's here to keep me on track, y'all. I almost started without hitting record. All right, I'm gonna say the prayer. Dear Heavenly Father, we are very grateful for this day. We're thankful for this morning, quiet morning, that we can get things done and feel closer to Thee. We pray that we can continue to listen for Thy Spirit and be able to feel guided by Thee, that we can listen and put in the actions that we need to reach our goals, that we will be able to be led by Thee and all things. We're thankful for the guidance that we get every single day, and that help us to listen to the words of the book, that we can apply them and be able to connect with those around us. We love you so very much. God bless those around us suffering, especially our family members, and that we can help them. I love you so much, and we say this in the name of Jesus Christ. Amen.
Amen.
I got kind of sneezy this morning, so we'll see.
Uh-oh.
Okay.
I had to spend 15 minutes looking for my book this morning.
Uh-oh. Where'd it go?
Because I took it from my spot so I could review that paragraph yesterday, which I'm sorry to just do this really fast, but I reread that paragraph and it made me kind of defensive.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah, because it's like I'm sitting here going, it's almost like it's saying that we don't take the time to really think about what we're creating as our own values, and that we're just holding on to them because there's something that we've found that we identify with, and I was just sort of like, I don't feel like I do that. I feel like I'm very careful about what I choose to believe in, and that, and then I thought, wait a minute, maybe there are a few things in my life that I do this with, and it's better for me to take the approach of, let me evaluate everything that I believe, so that I can reaffirm those things that I have taken the time to believe, and let go of those things that I don't really believe, and so that I can always approach people with this idea of openness. Anyway, so I lost my book, but I had some good review yesterday. Anyway.
Good reason to.
But I have my book now, so.
Okay, so in my book it's 121. If you want some excellent suggestions, that's where
we're at. What? I can't find it.
It says before that, it's Lincoln agree with Greeley.
If you want some excellent suggestions. Okay, it's 128.
Okay. 128 in Jessica's book, 121 in mine. Might be
timer.
In yours. Got it. Okay. There we go. Thank you for keeping me on track. Okay, if you want some excellent suggestions about dealing with people and managing yourself and improving your personality, read Benjamin Franklin's autobiography, one of the most fascinating life stories ever written, one of the classics of American literature. Ben Franklin tells how he conquered the iniquitous habit of argument and transformed himself into one of the most able, suave, and diplomatic men in American history. One day, when Ben Franklin was a blundering youth, an old Quaker friend took him aside and lashed him with a few stinging truths. Something like this: Ben, you are impossible. Your opinions have a slap in them for everyone who differs with you. They have become so offensive that nobody cares for them. Your friends find they enjoy themselves better when you are not around. You know so much that no man can tell you anything. Indeed, no man is going to try, for the effort would lead only to discomfort and hard work. So you are not likely ever to know any more than you do now, which is very little. Oh, ouch. But some smart truth, because that humbled him. One of the finest things I know about Ben Franklin is the way he accepted that smarting rebuke. He was big enough and wise enough to realize that it was true, to sense that he was headed for failure and social disaster. So he made a right about face. He began immediately to change his insolent, opinionated ways. I made it a rule, said Franklin, to forbear all direct contradiction to the sentiment of others, and all positive assertion of my own. I even forbade myself the use of every word or expression in a language that imported a fixed opinion, such as certainly, undoubtedly, etc., and I adopted instead of them I conceive, I apprehend, or I imagine a thing to be so or so, or it is, or it so appears to be, or it so appears to me at present. When another asserted something that I thought an error, I denied myself the pleasure of contradicting him abruptly, and of showing immediately some absurdity in his proposition. And in answering, I began by observing that in certain cases or circumstances his opinion would be right, but in the present case there appeared or seemed to me some difference, etc. I soon found the advantage of this change in my manner. The conversations I engaged in went on more pleasantly. The modest way in which I proposed my opinions procured them a readier reception and less contradictions. I had less mortification when I was found to be in the wrong, and I more
Mhm.
easily prevailed with others to give up their mistakes and join with me when I happened to be in the right. You hear
I
that?
love
I
that.
happened to be in the right.
I personally, I would love to have less mortification when I'm found to be wrong.
Yeah.
That sounds amazing to me.
Yeah. In this mode, which I at first put on with some violence to natural inclination, became at length so easy and so habitual to me that perhaps for these 50 years past no one has ever heard a dogmatical expression escape me. And to this habit, after my character of integrity, I think it principally owing that I had earned so much weight with my fellow citizens when I proposed new institutions or alterations in the old, and so much influence in public councils when I became a member. For I was but a bad speaker, never eloquent, subject to much hesitation in my choice of words, hardly correct in language, and yet I generally carried my points. How do Ben Franklin's methods work in business? Let's take two examples. Catherine A. Allred of Kings Mountain, North Carolina, is an industrial engineering supervisor for a yarn processing plant. She told one of our classes how she handled a sensitive problem before and after taking our training. Part of my responsibility, she reported, deals with setting up and maintaining incentive systems and standards for our operators so that they can make more money by producing more yarn.
Julia,
Yeah.
it's kind of hard to hear you.
Oh, okay. Let me scoot forward. Okay. But recently, is that better?
Yes.
But
Hold
recently
on,
we
you
had.
skipped the
Oh, did I?
system we were using.
Okay, thanks. I saw you
Yep.
on.
Sorry.
The system we were using had worked fine when we had only 2 or 3 different types of yarn, but recently we had expanded our inventory and capabilities to enable us to run more than 12 different varieties. The present system was no longer adequate to pay the operators fairly for the work being performed and give them an incentive to increase production. I had worked up a new system which would enable us to pay the operator by the class of yarn she was running at any one particular time. With my new system in hand, I entered the meeting determined to prove to the management that my system was the right approach. I told them in detail how they were wrong and showed where they were being unfair, and I had all the answers they needed. To say the least, I failed miserably. I had become so busy defending my position on the new system that I had left them no opening to graciously admit their problems on the old one. The issue was dead. After several sessions of this course, I realized all too well where I had made my mistakes. I called another meeting, and this time I asked where they felt their problems were. We discussed each point, and I asked them their opinions on which was the best way to proceed. With a few low-key suggestions at proper intervals, I let them develop my system themselves. At the end of the meeting, when I actually presented my system, they enthusiastically accepted it. I am convinced now that nothing good is accomplished and a lot of damage can be done if you tell a person straight out that he or she is wrong. You only succeed in stripping that person of self dignity and making yourself an unwelcome part of any discussion. Let's take another example. And remember, these cases I am citing are typical of the experiences of thousands of other people. R.B. Crowley was a salesman for a lumber company in New York. Crowley admitted that he had been telling hard-boiled lumber inspectors for years that they were wrong, and he had won the arguments too, but it hadn't done any good. For these lumber inspectors, said Mr. Crowley, are like baseball umpires. Once they make a decision, they never change it. Mr. Crowley saw that his firm was losing thousands of dollars through the arguments he won. So while taking my course, he resolved to change tactics and abandon arguments. With what result? Here's the story as he told it to the fellow members of his class. One morning, the phone rang in my office. A hot and bothered person at the other end proceeded to inform me that a car of lumber we had shipped into his plant was entirely unsatisfactory. His firm had stopped unloading and requested that we make immediate arrangements to remove the stock from the yard. After about one-fourth of the car had been unloaded, their lumber inspector reported that the lumber was running 55% below grade. Under the circumstances, they refused to accept it. I immediately started for his plant, and on the way turned over in my mind the best way to handle the situation. Ordinarily, under such circumstances, I should have quoted grading rules and tried, as a result of my own experience and knowledge as a lumber inspector, to convince the other inspector that the lumber was actually up to grade and that he was misinterpreting the rules in his inspection. However, I thought I would apply the principles learned in this training. When I arrived at the plant, I found the purchasing agent and the lumber inspector in a wicked humor, both set for an argument and a fight. We walked out to the car that was being unloaded, and I requested that they continue to unload so that I could see how things were going. I asked the inspector to go right ahead and lay out the rejects as he had been doing, and to put the good pieces in another pile. After watching him for a while, it began to dawn on me that his inspection actually was much too strict and that he was misinterpreting the rules. This particular lumber was white pine, and I knew the inspector was thoroughly schooled in hardwoods, but not a competent and experienced instructor on white pine. White pine happened to be my own strong suit, but did I offer any objection to the way he was grading the lumber? None whatever. I kept on watching and gradually began to ask questions as to why certain pieces were not satisfactory. I didn't for one instant insinuate that the inspector was wrong. I emphasized that my only reason for asking was in order that we could give his firm exactly what they wanted in future shipments. By asking questions in a very friendly, cooperative spirit and insisting continually that they were right in laying out boards not satisfactory to their purpose, I got him warmed up, and the strained relations between us began to thaw and melt away. An occasional carefully put remark on my part gave birth to the idea in his mind that possibly some of these rejected pieces were actually within the grade that they had bought, and that their requirements demanded a more expensive grade. I was very careful, however, not to let him think I was making an issue of this point. Gradually, his whole attitude changed. He finally admitted to me that he was not experienced on white pine and began to ask me questions about each piece as it came out of the car. I would explain why such a piece came within the grade specified, but kept on insisting that we did not want him to take it if it was unsuitable for their purpose. He finally got to the point where he felt guilty every time he put a piece on the rejected pile, and at last he saw that the mistake was on their part for not having specified as good a grade as they needed. The ultimate outcome was that he went through the entire carload again after I left, accepted the whole lot, and we received a check in full. In that one instance alone, a little tact and the determination to refrain, I'm just going to finish the page, from telling the other man he was wrong saved my company a substantial amount of cash, and it would be hard to place a money value on the goodwill that was saved. Martin Luther King was asked how, as a pacifist, he could be an admirer of Air Force General Daniel Chappie James, then the nation's highest ranking black officer. Dr. King replied, I judge people by their own principles, not by my own. Ooh, that's good. That's good. In a similar way, General Robert E. Lee once spoke to the President of the Confederacy, Jefferson Davis, in the most glowing terms about a certain officer under his command. Another officer in attendance was astonished. General, he said, do you not know that the man of whom you speak so highly is one of your bitterest enemies who misses no opportunity to malign you? Yes, replied General Lee, but the President asked my opinion of him. He did not ask for his opinion of me. By the way, I am not revealing anything new in this chapter. 2,000 years ago, Jesus said, agree with thine adversary quickly. And 2,200 years before Christ was born, King Actoi, how do you say that? I don't know. Actoi of Egypt. I feel like it should be a common name or something like.
I know, right?
Actoi, I don't know. Of Egypt gave his son some shrewd advice that is sorely needed today. Be diplomatic, counseled the king. It will help you gain your point. In other words, don't argue with your customer or your spouse or your adversary. Don't tell them they are wrong. Don't get them stirred up. Use a little diplomacy. The principle 2 is show respect for the other person's opinions. Never say you're wrong. Chapter 2 is, I don't know, chapter 4. We're a little
You know what I
halfway done.
liked was, where is it? Back when they were talking about Benjamin Franklin.
Mm-hmm.
So he says, and this mode, which I first put on with some violence to natural inclination, I was like, that means really hard work.
It's like battling in your mind.
Yeah, like violence to natural inclination. I'm like,
Yeah.
those are not soft words.
Yeah.
Dang it.
It's
Ah.
so true. I have overcome the violence of natural
God.
inclination for
Oh
arguing.
my, no.
Like growing up, I argued with my mom so much. I was
Oh,
right.
yeah.
I was right. I was right. I was right.
Me too.
Now my daughter is the same, and so I'm like, when she started, I think I put this in the blurb yesterday, but when she was like 2 and 3, she would argue like till she was blue in the face with me, and I'm like, why am I arguing with a 3-year-old about like the sky is purple? You know what I mean? Like, and it's the same
Okay.
thing, you know? Yeah. Okay. We'll see. You know.
Yeah. Okay, we'll
We'll
see.
look outside. So funny.
I have a young man as one of my children that acts very much like a young Benjamin Franklin right now.
Oh boy.
Solid opinion on everything, and it is exhausting
Yeah.
to talk to him about anything. And so, yeah, I've taken to the point of just being like, okay, cool.
Yeah.
All right. You know, I'm just like, whatever.
I know. Hannah is so cute. She'll be like, she's like discovering everything. You know what I mean?
That's
Oh my
sweet.
gosh, mom, this works like this and this works like this. And even if it's wrong, I'm like, that's so cool. What else did you find out? You know what I mean? Like,
Mm-hmm.
like encouraging the curiosity instead of like squashing it with facts.
Yeah. Because curiosity is going to get them to the truth eventually.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
We don't have to be the one to like show them everything.
Well, we can't. The
Yeah.
thing, like what the other portion with the whole like your system is wrong. It's like when she was, or he, I don't remember, was like presenting it as here's the answer. They were like, no thanks. But when she was presenting it as like, what are the problems? How do you, and letting them figure it out,
Yeah.
like that's when people are open and learning, is when they feel like they're figuring it out. Even if we're
Feel like
teaching.
they're heard.
Yes.
They just want to be heard first.
Well, and like she said, it saves them face. It's like they feel empowered because they feel like they're part of the solution and not like just part of the problem.
Yeah, exactly. Oh, awesome. Good discussion.
Yeah.
It's humbling. It's humbling. That's what we got
My
to do.
gosh.
Just tough.
Gives me something good to think about every day, though. Like, that's what I tell myself. I'm like, okay, well, today, this is what I'm going to work on.
Yeah.
Tomorrow, we'll see, and at least it's in there, so.
Awesome. Thanks, Jess, for the awesome conversation. Bye, guys.